All right, babes, it's Bimini, and we are back with a brand new episode of The Pieces. And I'm very excited for today's guest because we have the incredible Dr. Nighat. Dr. Nighat, how are you today?
Oh, I'm so good. I am so excited to be here. You are like a guilty pleasure, honestly.
Why guilty? No, I love it. Thank you for coming on because I feel like I've been doing the podcast now since around October time, and we've had some incredible guests. But I said I wanted to start be a bit more like different experiences, different cultures, different worlds of like understanding. And I think you specialise in women's health.
Yeah.
And I think the audience, it'll be really amazing for them to hear and hear what you do. So I'm really excited to have you on. It's going to be an interesting conversation.
I hope so.
I'm excited. So how are you feeling?
I'm feeling really good because I think that whenever different cultures and different backgrounds come together, magic happens.
Mm-hmm.
And we underestimate that. And we don't reflect on that enough. We are so busy fighting differences. And there's an echo chamber that the more different you are, the more friction there is. But actually that echo chamber is actually minuscule because the work that I do as a clinician, I see every background, every ethnicity, every race, every religion, every age, from I would say 0 all the way up to 100. And those experiences and the lessons I learn from there are the thing that makes me a better clinician. So if you've got a doctor who's inquisitive and asks questions, or any person that is curious, I love them, and you're curious.
I'm very curious. I'm bi-curious. No, but no,
We'll get onto that later. That's what the after dark version.
Yeah, you're so right though. Curiosity, I think, is a quality that if you have naturally, then you're set. Like you're good. Like you could keep going. I know people that I'm inspired by to this day. One person I'll just mention, Princess Julia, we love. She's curious. I've always said it to her. She has an innate curiosity. And I think if you have that, there's a spark. It's magic.
And I think also when you're curious, you break down barriers because you undo the lived-in prejudices that you have. And as a doctor who's been working in the women's health space, there is so much stuff about women's health, which I will bore all your listeners to, but there is so much medical misogyny, medical racism, and also, 52% of the population up until 2025, I would say, has been ignored in research and data. So we're so behind in women's health when it comes to diagnosis like PMDD, endometriosis, menopause, you name it. So women don't feel seen or heard, but a lot of it is just having the curiosity to go, okay, I will unlearn the stuff that I wasn't learned and the misogyny that is built into my system. And I want to now pursue to help my patient. And that can be in any walks of life, because if you knock on your neighbour's door, and there could be any background whatsoever, but if you knock on them and you go, do you know what? I have just smelt the best jerk chicken. Mate, I'm coming around for lunch. And isn't that like the most beautiful thing that we can do that in this day and age, rather than go, oh God, that smells horrible. And with my background, sort of being South Asian and Pakistani, I was 9 years old when I came here and I didn't speak a word of English. And so I had to learn to adapt. And I think those people that learn how to adapt, learn from their mistakes, learn to be curious, reach out constantly to break barriers, they're the souls that we should be totally amplifying. And they're the souls that I definitely feed off.
So would you say is where your curiosity comes from, I guess, having to adapt?
Having to adapt because I was an alien. And look at me, I wear a hijab, the most gorgeous pink hijab. Can I just say that?
It is gorgeous.
But also because people put you in a box straight away because of the way you look, the way you sound. You're either not too white or you're too white. And so I was this alien that landed in a completely different world from Pakistan. And then having to adapt was survival, but also having to adapt was a level of freedom that I had, because I totally understand, as a girl, I wouldn't have had those freedoms if I was in some of the places of the world. And we see that now playing out in front of us on our news. And also, I suppose even now there are still restrictions. Like how many times have I spoken to my friends and said, you get in that Uber, you phone me 10 times. I don't think I would always have that conversation with my male mates if they're going home. So they're still present. And I suppose that sort of curiosity and that ability to adapt means that that level of education comes in. And for me, I think education is the fundamental building block for freedom, but also freedom of your mind as well. Because if you're not educated, then the doctrine that you're taught is what you believe other people are going to be like. And that builds fear, and fear builds hate. And I can't abide people who hate other people just for being different.
I mean, we're definitely going to get on. This is going to be a great conversation because it's so true. And I have to sometimes take a step back and be like, I can let things hurt me or upset me when I'm like, why can't people just be nicer to each other? And the media fuels a lot of it as well. The media fuels a lot of the division, and it intends to do that.
Because it makes money. There is a way of making money from hate, and there's always a way of making money from love as well, but it's less so. And we see algorithm, like I'm on social media, so I make TikToks, I make YouTube videos, and I know, when I'm on TV as well as a medical broadcaster talking about a health issue, especially in the pandemic when I started, the majority of people stopped because there's a hijab woman on telly and she's talking about something I don't know about. And she's talking about marina coils and she's talking about vulvas. I thought Muslim women didn't do that. And I'm like, mate, we have vulvas. Right?
Plot twist.
Yeah, mic drop.
Yeah.
And also, a lot of my taboo subjects around women's health, the shame that we have, that we carry because of that, it's always like, but I thought that, women from your South Asian community didn't do this. So and we have terms already set aside. So how many times would you have like the term slag for a woman, but we don't have a term for a man? How many in Punjabi we have besharam or bisharmi, which is a word that just means shame, or haram. Haram is just sinful, anything that's it. And I think those sort of restrictive levels means that it stops you in your tracks. And then that stops you learning. And that for me is the saddest thing. So I totally get the fact that people watch me on social media and they either like me because they're like, oh my God, or they're intrigued by me. So there's a lot of people who are intrigued by the hijab. Don't worry, I do have hair underneath there. And then there's a lot of people who are just like, just hateful for no apparent reason, just because I look different. And they're like, oh, shouldn't you be in the kitchen? Or shouldn't you be in some like Islamic state? Or the fact that you want this country to become a Sharia law. Look, love, I still love watching Love Island. Like that, if I wanted this country to be Sharia law, like you'd have to take Love Island off me and also RuPaul's Drag Race.
There we go. But that's what I mean. Us two sat together having a conversation is probably going to be quite shocking for people to see.
I think it will. And if I'm totally honest with you, I did think a couple of times whether, because this is really shocking. And for a lot of people that know me, they will know that, with my conservative background, I'm a practicing Muslim as well. But I think that this is precisely what the world needs right now. This sort of companionship and camaraderie. You're a beautiful soul. You're an incredibly kind soul. And if I don't use my platform or you don't use your platform to amplify that, which is you already do, because I listen to your content and I know what you're about. And so I think that that's what's missing. So when you said, oh, social media drives a lot of that, I think the only way to break that is to show the other side of it, and show, look, if we can just drum it down to the bare bones, which is being kind, and even more than that, just being human, we've forgotten how to be human.
It's totally true. And I think it's so having this conversation and you sat here with me is going to allow other people to be like, oh, actually, you know what? That was a really interesting conversation. And they are just two people that are human. And I can also not judge other people in a harsh way, And that's what I hope every day, everything I do. Because
the first thing we see is what we look like, right? So what you look like, your aesthetics. And we use masks, all of us, in different forms. And so the first thing that we do is we make a snap judgment, whether that's a good or a bad thing. And, I get it all the time. I'm othered. You've been othered.
Yep.
Tell me how many times you've been othered.
Oh my God, since I was about 4.
Exactly.
Or 3. Like I remember being in play school and I wanted to wear a purple velvet dress. And
Beautiful.
I was being othered then because that wasn't okay, Like it was, like thinking back, I was always being told by other people.
Yes. And it's by other people who think that they're doing good for you. And actually that othering, I get that. I'm a woman of colour.
The fear of the unknown.
Yeah. And also there's somehow this malign belief that you're going to contaminate other things. And I get that as an othered woman. I'm a woman of colour. instantly I'm seen as suppressed, repressed, and depressed straight away. Or someone's forcing me to wear a hijab.
You're well dressed.
Thank you. Oh my God, I will take that as a compliment. But also, I think that anyone that has felt different or othered, when they see us together, will be like, actually, being different is the most beautiful thing. Because that's how we learn from each other, and that's how we celebrate each other.
And it's true, everyone is unique. Everyone has uniqueness to them, you know? Like, if everyone was the same, how boring would the world be?
Oh, so boring.
Yeah.
So boring. So this is when I mentioned like my guilty pleasure, like one of my biggest, to me, it's not unusual sitting with you because I go back to RuPaul because that is my guilty pleasure. That is my show. And I kid you not, just before the pandemic, I sat down for lunch with my very dear friend, Rabbi Debbie. So very Jewish woman, she's a rabbi. And we sat there, and do you know what all we talked about? So a Muslim woman with a hijab, the daughter of the imam, so my father's a priest. Rabbi Debbie works very closely with our mosque. So forget what you read in the papers. Muslims and Jews, we love each other and we get on very, very well. And we're all striving for the same thing, which is peace and humanity. And all we did was talk about the glamorous dresses.
See, it brings everyone together.
And also, I think that escapism and the beauty of color, the beauty of differentness, and also how all the artists, I would actually call you artists, you know, all the artists on RuPaul, it's pure escapism, but there's pure heart to it. And also, why not have a bit of Brick Crew for your eye candy? Yeah.
But it's the humanity element, no? Like when you watch the show and you see the glamorous dresses and the outfits, but then you hear the human stories and the vulnerability and the fact that there's something that you might relate to, or someone on the show might have gone through something that's similar to you. And at the end of the day, I think it brings back the idea that we are all on this earth having this experience, and we can either make it harder or make it easier for each other.
And you know what, Bimini, what you just said there, it's that relatability and all just wanting to rub along and get on. That is exactly what I see in my clinics. So what I did is what I see in my clinics as a doctor, and this August will be 19 years of service in the NHS. And I grew up, when I was younger, the first person to learn English in my family. So then naturally you become the translator. So I then became the natural translator for my family, for my community, talking about periods, you know, discussing miscarriage, and not knowing that I was discussing that. And then 41-year-old Nighat, I'm now 41, sorry guys, I'm very old. So, you know, that me has thought, I'm still translating the same things for my community because there's just no words. And what we want to do is rub along as women. We just want to get in and get our things sorted and go out. Because I kid you not, this is, okay, so I'll give you an example of how much, like when it comes to female biology, we just want to get on. And I would say this relates to a lot of human beings anyway. So, you know, regardless of your gender, that if we're talking about heavy periods, for example, and heavy bleeding, that is not the thing that brings women into my clinics. What brings women into my clinics is unbearable pain that they can't get to work. So what brings women into my clinic is like, you know, not the fact that they're using tons and tons of toilet roll, stashing it into their underwear just so they can carry on their job as a barista, or the fact that they're changing a period product every hour, or the fact that they've got like nearly 2 or half a litre, 500 mils of blood in their moon cup. They're like, oh yeah, that's fine. That's what I cope with. But what they won't cope with is the fact that I can't walk up a flight of stairs now, I'm breathless. The pain is so intense. When I have sexual intercourse, it's actually really painful and we're trying for a baby. Or the fact that actually what I really can't do is I can't run after my kids because now she's anemic. So it's never the bleed that brings women in because they are so used to the fact that they just need to plod on and carry on. And so I see that. So what we need to do is bring that out into the open. So that's what I started doing.
So you got into 18 years ago? 19 years 19 now? 19
yeah,
years.
Oh God, I'm old.
Well, and I think like even the openness and the conversations being open is just so important to have, like regardless, especially with health and women's health, like what you're saying, there's again, stigma and shame. And I feel like I've know it from, and I'm sure she won't mind me saying this, my mum, who wouldn't be open about what she was going through. And then you have to your body changes and goes through so many different things and experiences and hormonal changes, and keeping it to yourself and not feeling like you can be open about it is a failure in society.
It is a failure in society. And I think that it's all encompassing. It's a political failure because of the laws that have been set around. So I don't have to look far, even in our country, the fact that, we had to fight as women to get the vote in this country. You look at the fact that in US right now, they've overturned Roe versus Wade. So women are again in the free world trying to fight for their biology. I know you've got a lot to say about that. And then you've got also women are still having to pay for contraception. And you're just like, but why? And in 2025, we have no male contraception, hormonal contraception out in the market yet. And that's crazy. But yet, you've got the individuals who are ready to put other people on Mars. And you're like, that's your priority?
It's so wild, isn't it?
Absolutely wild. And it's a failure of economics as well. 52% or 51% of the population are female, biologically female. And so if you're looking at that, you're just thinking, okay, but we don't even equate into the finances, because if you look at the economics of it, we are far behind in career. We're far behind in the gender pay gap. We made a slight crack in, I would say, the glass ceiling at the moment, but we're not there yet, and it's 2025. And also we earn less. And then they use our biology against us. Oh, but you're going to go off on maternity leave. Go and have your baby. Let's pat your head on, pat you for a little bit and then come back and let's see where you are. So you're far behind the career ladder already. Our periods, so things like endometriosis. So we already know that, up to 32% of girls will actually change their career choices based on the fact how heavy their periods are. So at school, we're talking about 12, 13-year-old girls who will just completely do away with aspirations already. So that's a failure of a system. And then finally, culturally, I would still say that we're still having to fight over if a woman is upset, oh, she's on that time of the month, innit? Ha ha. It's a bit of a joke.
Yeah.
Or talking about HRT is shameful. Or if a woman is angry, it's like, oh, watch out, lads. It's her time of the month. She's a dragon at the moment. And it's almost like the role still in society is seen as, well, you're here to reproduce. If you're not doing that, then actually shut up about everything else. And that all-encompassing factor is why we have to make sure that we are the generation that changes that in another generation of circle of people who make money off hate and division and strive off that, because it puts their algorithm, because wherever there's a friction, the algorithm does well. But what we need to be is smarter than that. And I fear that, I cannot let that win. This is why I'm here, because I cannot let that win. I cannot let hate win.
It's so true. And I think everything you just said there was really beautiful, by the way. But those points, like the economy and culturally and politically, it's medical misogyny. Yeah. It's rooted in misogyny, the whole situation with that. Because if it was the shoe was on the other foot, there has been contraception for male body.
A hormonal contraception.
But there were too many side effects.
Yes, there was. So there are current trials. I'm watching this trial very carefully. We're in phase 3 trials in India at the moment. And there is a plan to have the male contraceptive pill. Would you take it? Or this would be a really good one for your listeners. Would you trust your male partners to take the pill? So ask that if you're listening to this podcast.
I've been trying to get pregnant for years. It doesn't work.
We need to talk off air.
Yeah.
But also, I think that there's two things to that. One is that the trials have constantly stopped because men got headaches. They got nausea. They also got stomach cramps. And I'm sorry, but I know... Oh. Do you know, I do have a lot of sympathy as well. I'm a mother to 3 boys. And so I look at them and I just think I really am desperate for you to learn how the shoe is on the other foot as well. And as much as we say, look, there's no male contraceptive, is because the argument is, well, men don't carry the pregnancy. At the moment, female bodies carry the pregnancy. And so really it should be all on there. But I'm just saying, no. It takes 2 people, 50-50 to make a baby. But however, society lies the responsibility of falling pregnant at the foot of the door of the female. At the men, it's just like, it's really not his responsibility at all. So a lot of things that are geared in healthcare is at the foot of your door. And then that is what we need you to sort of look after. So where's the responsibility for men? And I think that's the other factor, because they don't physically carry anything. So the idea is as well, we don't need to prioritize that. But I'm just saying, okay, but what about if we shift that narrative? How hard would it be to shift that narrative and say, hang on, guys, it takes 50-50 responsibility. You need to buck up your ideas. But culturally, historically, the patriarchy, we've got to that word already, the patriarchy has made sure that the system is set up that the responsibility never lies at the foot of the door of male responsibility. So we are where we are.
Do you know what the side effects of Viagra is?
Yes, I do.
So there's very similar to headaches and red face.
Yeah, we have 4.
Yeah.
We have 4 on the market available for free on the NHS.
Well, there you go. It just figures, doesn't it? Because I feel like if that can be readily available, why can't a contraceptive pill for a male be?
And the crazy thing is, sorry to interrupt you there, Bimini. The crazy thing is that the one bit of healthcare that fascinates me is morality. The pill, movie stars, you've got like ad campaigns. No one questions morality. He could be sleeping around, have X number of partners. Nobody uses the word slag. Nobody says, oh, whatever. No, there's no question about it. It's almost like there are strong words. Stag, there's strong, like
Boss.
Almost. Yes, exactly. Strong words that we use. Whereas the pill, when the oral combined contraceptive pill came out, the biggest barrier at the time was, but we don't want to sleeping around. The morality issues. So it took the Catholic Church, and actually, I would say a lot of faith as well. I mean, as a Muslim practicing doctor, it also took faith as well. That conversation about, well, there might be promiscuity. We can't have that. And I find that fascinating. In no other aspects of male healthcare is there a conversation about morality, but yet when it comes to female health, there's always some sort of conversation historically, or whether it lingers around in societies and communities and faith groups now, there's always that question of morality. And that really annoys me.
I don't know how you feel about this, but there's a real uprising in this kind of real far right mentality in the UK with people like some figureheads, I'm not going to say their name, but there's now an increase in sexual assault with 14 to 16-year-old girls, highest than they've ever been, by boys of the same age.
It's
and
awful.
It worries me so much to think that we're going backwards. It feels like we're regressing in a way. Like it's a lot of things are quite reductive when it comes to viewing ideas of like how things should be. And I thought we'd come to quite a place of equality. And even on a basic level, there's a rainbow map where it's the acceptance of LGBTQ plus people in Europe, 49 countries. 10 years ago, UK was number 1. We're now number 22.
And you know what? That's what saddens me to the core, because we come back to where we started. It's losing our basic humanity and being humans with each other. And I think that we're letting that small noise of hate breed hate. And so individuals like us that are sitting together like today, having a conversation and talking about it, because it permeates all sorts of walks of life. It permeates fashion, it permeates industry, it permeates, every bit of health that you could think of, family life, etc. That means that hate will just keep on growing. And I always say that the only way to ever combat that is to constantly show up and show up for each other. So when you invited me, I was like, of course, I'm going to show up for you because I stand by you, because I know what it feels like to be othered. I'm there with you. I feel that to my core. But also, what a beautiful way to showcase the fact that women's health permeates everything.
Totally.
Because you talked about your mum in such a loving way. My mother, by the way, I should just tell you, is mortified by my book. You've got it there with you. And
the knowledge.
On the 7th page, there's a black vulva. Are you going to show it?
I'm going to get the vulva out. Your guide to female health from menstruation to menopause.
And I showed it to my mother, and she just looked at me and she just went, which is translated to all those Punjabi listeners on this, will know that. That's translated as, have you no shame? Did you not find anything better to do with your time? So,
I mean, it's incredible. You said something, I think it was off camera, but this is the first book person of colour, women of colour?
So my book is fully illustrated and it's fully inclusive, and that was done on purpose because this is a decade's worth of my work as a clinician. And what I wanted to do in there was to have women of colour, women that look like me, because when I was in medical school, all the textbooks are either line drawings, and you don't ever see the color. So actually, we don't know what vulval lichen planus looks like. Or for example, prolapses, uterine prolapses on different skin. We don't know what eczema even looks like in the vulval area. We don't know various skin changes that can happen to a baby as well, because all of it, the default is white Caucasian skin. And to be fair, my publisher said to me, would you want to do line drawings? And I said, no, I want everything, but not just one black shade of skin. Because we know that colorism exists. I am from that community where I'm considered too dark already. I remember when, because I had an arranged marriage, a very quick story. So an arranged marriage, and my mother asked the lady in our local area, who sets up marriages and stuff. And she just went, oh, Nighat, no one's going to marry her. You're bahut kali hai. Which is translated as she's too dark. Can you believe that? And I'm not even going that far back. This is like the early 2000s. So, and I wanted to make sure that doesn't come across in my book. And also, I really wanted to cover trans health. I've looked after trans patients for a number of years. But in my area, I would mostly say trans men as well. And so they still have periods. They still would have endometriosis. And I learned that not because of my medical training. I learned that by accident. And I'm not embarrassed to say this because it is covered in my book. I had a Sikh patient. This is many, many years ago. And I actually didn't know that they were non-binary and also that they were breastbinding. And I could never get round to examining them at all. They would never, but would come in with abdominal pain. So it was IBS, it was irritable, but it was a bit of constipation, take some painkillers, etc. It got to the point where they had like oozing pus from the side of their breastbinding because they're breastbinding that hard. At the time, they were about 19 years old. And I said, look, I need to examine you. No, you can't examine me. No one had examined this person ever. And I said, all right, I'm going to speak to you in Punjabi because I need to connect with you somehow. And I'm going to tell you from Punjabi woman to a Punjabi person, I adore you and I would not do anything that is uncomfortable for you. I'm more than welcome to get a chaperone. But can I please examine you because I don't think what you have is irritable bowel and this is actually taking over your life. And it's only when I got to examine them that I realized that they were breastbinding. It's only then that I realized that actually they were trying to transition. And it's only then that I realized that their diagnosis is actually endometriosis. And I think that took us, I would say, possibly about 9 months of being in each other's lives as doctor-patient relationship. And then it came out that they'd been kicked out their house. Their family aren't talking to them. It broke me in a way. It broke my heart because I just thought to myself, you literally just want to get on with life. You're kind. You just want your period pain and your endometriosis to be dealt with so you can just get on with life. And society has made you feel so small that you've got to hide almost everything from your doctor. And the medical fraternity has set up a barrier to say it's all in your head, that you're the crazy person because there's that level of medical gaslighting. And the trust barrier between the doctor-patient has broken so badly that you could not open up and you're now getting into your early 20s. And I felt really, really, really bad as a clinician. But also, I mean, they're doing well, they're thriving and then they're doing amazingly. But I thought I would be doing a disservice as a GP to that community who I adore, who literally haven't always ever given me respect back if I didn't include them in my book.
Well, I thank you for that. And I think hearing you say that is going to be so empowering for people and really important, especially in the time that we're in now.
From my experience, I think a lot of the basics, if you understand the community, which is I'm hoping and actually this is the lovely thing that my book has been received quite well, or actually very well by my fellow colleagues. And the trans health bit has been the bit that so many of my GP colleagues have reached out to me and said, I've learned so much from this and now I'm aware of what I'm looking for. When we started, I said, what pronouns would you like?
Yeah.
And for me, that's not, other than the fact that I just utterly respect you and I want to know how to, and that would be the same. You were asking how to pronounce my name. And I think that's just basic stuff that we should be teaching our kids.
Totally.
Because that's where respect starts, right?
It does. It was definitely, and I think even trying to be divided. It's all learned, so you can unlearn and be open. And I think your story is really special and powerful. I think you're quite punk. I don't know if you're.
Oh yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, honestly, I love it.
I will take that. I've never been told that though.
Yeah,
my kids find like this morning. My son said to me, "Oh my God, you're so cringe, Mum. You're so cringe," and I'm apparently the peak of sadness. So there are some phrases which my Gen Alpha kids are teaching me a lot, and I love it because actually I think that I come back to the whole bit of being curious right at the top.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just so curious all the time, and I think anybody that's if they've got a good soul and they've got I go by vibes.
Yeah,
I'm very much a vibes person.
Yeah.
And if someone's just not on my vibe, I just say, I'm really sorry, but you're not in my tribe.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I started out originally, so I started off on TV. I had no idea the mayhem that was happening because of the way I look. Because like Middle England suddenly woke up and they were like, there's a woman with a hijab and she's not baking me a cake. Like, what's going on here?
Wild.
Like, why is she in a kitchen but not baking me a cake? Because isn't that what all women do? I was like, no, like, I'm off to the clinic. And then it was just like, oh, but sister, who's looking after your children if you're doing all of this work? And so, that patriarchy that no one asks a man who's looking after your kids. And then slowly I started doing social media. And it was really because of a dare, because my sister, who's a dentist, was like, I was having the same conversations with my patients over and over again under lockdown on video calls. And at the time, TikTok was really getting big. And my sister was just like, what are you doing? And I said, I want to make videos about vaginal atrophy. And she went, what, dry vaginas? And I went, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, the perfect. And she went, with a hijab on? I went, yeah, but hijab women get dry vaginas,
Yeah.
And she went, really? And I went, yeah. And I think I really want to talk about female pleasure. And she went, what are you talking about?
See, it's incredible though.
Okay, one of the things that I think that we are really bad at doing as clinicians is that we don't share our knowledge in an understandable way. And there is this sort of hierarchy, we'll admit it, we'll say it how it is. And so there is this superiority about people who have knowledge. And so they use that as a shield, as a protection. But you're down there. And I just thought, no, I don't want to be like that. I want to be slightly different. And I'm a bit kooky like that. So I'll take the word punk because I just thought, I'm going to talk about female pleasure and vaginal atrophy till my heart's content.
But I think punk to me means it comes from a place of kindness, comes from a place of, but wanting the good in every good.
See, that's because you're young.
But being
you're
radical.
Like a baby.
Yeah.
Look at you.
But like they're going against societal norms for the good, I think, or morally. And I think you follow what your intuition or how you feel inside should be.
I follow how people treat me. You've always treated me with kindness, openness. So how can I not reciprocate that? And I will take people honestly and this is what I teach my boys as well. There are 3 British Pakistani boys. And my 14-year-old is trying to find his place in the world now because I think he's now aware that he's a brown boy. What that means, because he's treated differently from his white friends in a park. So if he's wearing a hoodie with the hood up, he'll get shouted at first by anybody else. Even though he's not even the person that did anything bad. Yeah. It was his white friend who probably was swearing, but he'll get called out. And so he's now sort of becoming aware of racism in the UK. And I was hoping it would be a bit later on. And it's really saddened me that that's the case. Or he'll get called the P word, at school, etc. And I think that the only way is I say to people, you have to take them as they approach you. So if you treat me with kindness and you treat me with openness and you're open and you're willing to share your culture, your heritage, your story, and I'm nosy, I'm a very nosy person. So I want to know who you're having an affair with. Tell me, Bimini. No, don't tell me.
No one at the minute.
Yeah. That's for another episode. Yeah. That's an after dark episode. But that sort of nosiness also means that that's how I'll reciprocate with you.
I think stay curious. It's important to stay curious.
Yeah, because I think that humbles you as well. I know my limitations. I stick to my lane. I know what I'm good at. And then anything that I don't know, I will go and inquire about, learn about it. But I'll keep an open mind. But I've had to unlearn so much stuff to get to this position. I'm not a 41-year-old Pakistani woman who speaks Punjabi very badly, who suddenly sort of landed here. I've had to unlearn a lot of the dogma and the patriarchy and the misogyny, the internal misogyny. I think there's nothing worse on God's green earth than women who cannot stand up for women. And that infuriates me. And I think that to get that is to fight against the rhetoric that we don't get along. But I think the majority of people would get along. And you offered to me that you wanted to go on the slash. So that might be...
I agree though. I think to a basic level, if people have just human conversations with each other, we wouldn't be as divided politically, socially, culturally as we are. And I think that fear, like you said, it sells...
You are no different to me. I am no different to you. Underneath it, we all bleed the same. I can tell you that as a clinician, categorically, biologically, that is correct. It's everything else that causes the anger and the hate and the feel-driven. And you know what? The scary thing is, it's all based off a feeling.
Yeah.
Isn't that mad? You invest in something because of a feeling.
Yeah.
You fall in love with someone because of a feeling. You're scared from something because of... It's an emotion that drives almost every single thing. The fact that I wore a pink hijab was all based on a feeling today. That's it.
It looks great though. I love it.
But and that blows my mind that everything that we do is based on something we can't feel, touch, smell, buy, but drives everything, which is this, it's just a feeling. It's not a biological process. It's not... some scientists have said, look, it's a chemical reaction in the brain, but it's not
a spiritual one.
There's a spiritual, but it like emotion is literally, there's nothing solid. Like this glass is a solid thing. I can say this is, that's not, but yet is the one thing that drives so many different things. And also it fuels either hate or love. And there's nothing more fractious in nature than hate or love.
Learning to know yourself more is when you can learn to trust yourself more and follow. Because if everyone's more in tune with the feelings, I think you end up being happier.
You do. And also, I think that comes from others then validating you. So how many times have you not been validated?
Probably a lot.
Why? Is it because you weren't assertive enough, or you invalidated yourself going, it's probably nothing?
Probably invalidated myself. I think also shame from being younger, when I would like dance and be told I can't do that. I wasn't, do you know what I mean? Like things like society.
But that's the feeling, right? What was, I mean, it might not be in one thing. Sorry, I know I'm like,
no, go.
This is the doctor in me now. This is what happens in my consultation rooms. But what was that thing that you just said, this?
I think I always had it in me though. I think I always had something in me that was like, I want to do things. I want to do things that I'm being told I can't do. So I think when I turned a teenager, I started rebelling a bit with fashion. And that was when I was kind of like on this journey. And it's an ongoing one. It always changes. Like I'm not at the end goal of who I am and I am as a person. I'm still learning about myself, understanding myself. I've just turned 32. I'm like figuring things out, you know, and like everything can be, it changes. And I think I'm excited by that.
So what you're describing there is transitioning. So we transition so much as human beings. So if I come back to the biology of females, we transition so much. We transition 3 times. So we transition from the moment we're born and then we go into puberty. That's when our periods start. Then we go through our fertile fertility years. There's no other bigger transition, normal, air quotation mark, normal transition than pregnancy. Our body changes and stuff. Then we go through perimenopause around the age of about 40 when our hormones transition. And then we go through postmenopause. But we're always we're changing and adapting throughout all our life. But yet, isn't it crazy that this biological transition is under-recognized, under-researched, under-looked at? And yet what you're describing is absolutely that. You had it in you because you knew the transitions that you would need to make because you're growing and learning. But yet we don't seem to be able to appreciate that for the human body.
It's so true. And that's so this is the first version of the book.
Yes.
And you've got a revised version.
I've got a revised version. It's coming out in the summer. It's going to be into 3 different books because the book is in just 3 big chapters. Thank you, my glamorous assistant.
I love the knowledge.
And it is because what I wanted a book without shame. And so this is like a coffee table book. You just pop it onto the table and there is There's nothing that you want to hide. Because when I was younger, getting a book about puberty, not that I was given one by my mother, but getting a book about puberty, you wanted to shove it under the bed and make sure that your mum didn't see it, etc. And I just thought, no, I don't want that. I want this to sit on a coffee table where generations, so the mum, the grandma, the dad, everybody can pick sections up of that and then talk about it and have a discussion, because these should be cross-generational conversations. You should not have to wait until you're 14 or 15 to then learn about periods or learn about puberty as a male.
Totally.
You should be, that should be a cross-generational conversation. You should not have to learn until you are giving birth to be told about your pain relief options. Isn't that crazy that that's how it is at the moment? And so I wanted to make sure that happens, but it's done so well. Thank you to everybody that has championed my book. That it's been revised and it's been split into 3 chapters. So you can get a paperback in puberty, your pregnancy and fertile years, and then also midlife and beyond. So if you just wanted the puberty bit for somebody in the house, then you can just buy that bit, or you can buy the 3 all in one go. And I think that's a testament to the fact that there is still such a huge demand for inclusivity. And so I thank everybody out there who's championing inclusion.
And I thank you for doing that as well.
Oh, no, that means so much.
Can we do a quick myth buster?
Yeah, of course.
And then I want to ask you one last question.
Okay.
And then we're good. But this has been incredible. I'd actually say one of my favourite interviews. I'm not even joking.
Oh, babe. Right. I am like shrinking you and putting you in my pocket. You can come into my consultation.
I'm quite small. It won't take me that. Okay, so I'm going to do some quick myth busters.
Okay.
We'll do a few of them. Is cranberry juice good for UTIs?
No. It's not. That's a myth. It does sort of make the urine, we say it's basically having a dilutory event. But no, urinary tract infections are infections and need to be treated by antibiotics. Please do not cram yourself with cranberry juice thinking it will get better. We need to stop mistreating women. We need to give them actually antibiotics, get to the root cause of their UTIs. All a cranberry juice does is just wash out your system and dilute your urine, which is always good because it rehydrates you.
Something must be wrong if you're not interested in sex.
There is nothing wrong with you. So when we're talking about libido, it's multifaceted. So you've got to look at biosocial, psychological. So bio is biological. So is there something that's actually going on? And it could be that maybe the birth hormonal control pill that you're on is affecting your mood and your cycles, and that is affecting your interest in sex. Psychological, like you'll be shocked at the number of people who are with the wrong person. You don't need me to tell you that. You were like, your eyes lit up. You're like, I know that.
I've been with a few of the wrong people.
All right, we need to have a conversation. So yeah, and that will affect your ability for your desire or libido. And then finally, social. You're just too busy. We're busy people with busy lives. We're trying to do everything, and so I think that also affects libido. And we seem to have this weird cultural thing because I suppose driven by the porn industry and movies, etc. That's it. You're ready in 2 seconds. And it's not like that at all. There's a lot of, I would say, libido build-up work that you have to do. So it's the little things, it's the touches, the hugs, the kisses, the strokes, the way you talk to each other. Women and men that I speak to, they know when they're being coercively controlled by their partner. Are they just great in the bedroom and they love you, and then afterwards they're just abusive to you?
Yeah.
That sort of awful narcissistic behavior. People they might not have words for it, but they know it inside them that that's not how I want to be treated. And so that will also affect your ability to have sex. We do know, then if I come back to the biological bit, that fluctuating hormones, particularly if I look at the female body, will do that. So as our estrogen decreases, and there are a couple of times that happens. That's usually a week to 10 days before our bleed. That's when we want to murder our partner because we're in the luteal phase. And if they touch you want to punch them in the... Not that I encourage that, but you do want to punch them in the face. And then the other time is after having babies, because our body now needs to rest. And the other time is when we're perimenopausal because our estrogen starts to decrease. But then conversely, our testosterone decreases as women. And yes, women do have testosterone. So the female biological body does produce that from the brain and also our ovaries and a few other places. And so as that testosterone decreases, your libido isn't so great. So you need to prize that biological, social, psychological model. But no, it doesn't necessarily always mean that something is wrong with you just because you don't want it all the time.
Dr. Nighat, this has been such an incredible conversation.
Oh,
I want to do a part 2 and 3 and 4. Last question though. You are very open about inclusivity and understanding. What do you hope for the future of women's and healthcare in general?
So in my GP surgery wall, there's a quote that I've got there from an author and a poet called Colleen Hoover. And she writes a lot about women, actually. But she wrote about the pain and the cycles of pain that women go through and how it's nullified over the years. So she writes in one of her really long prose and a paragraph at the end goes, my grandmother went through it. My mother went through it. I'm going through it. And I'll be damned if my daughter goes through this. And so that for me is my hope for the future. I'll be damned if the next generation go through what you went through. That feeling of being lost, not being seen, not being heard, not being validated, your existence, not being appreciated, the beauty of your soul not being amplified, the idea that the pain that we carry around as humans, we just somehow, it just passing it on and on and on. So I'll be damned if the future generation don't continue on with the message of kindness and inclusion.
Thank you so much for pushing that message. And I completely agree. This has been such an insightful and inspired conversation. Dr. Nighat, thank you so much for coming on The Pieces. We need more people like you in the world.
Oh, thank you. No, I'm really humbled. Thank you for having me.